How low can you tune a snare drum before it just sounds bad? Well, let's find out. We'll talk about some reasons why you might want to tune low, and we'll tune my snare lower and lower throughout the video to see if there's a limit to how low we can go without it sounding like garbage. And I'll also share with you a quick tip for getting a cool dead snare sound without the use of any muffling. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to The Non-Glamorous Drummer. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. An important thing to note is that a low snare tuning is all relative and very subjective. We're definitely getting into very subjective tuning territory here. But I know I've heard in the comments people saying, hey Steven, your snare is really low. I'd tune it higher if I were you. Sounds better tuned higher, your snare's too low. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I don't think my snare is that low. It's kind of a medium low-ish, but it's really not that low. No, it's not cranked high. No, we're not at piccolo tension. But I find that kind of a medium, even getting close to low, is really a better, more musical sound for most of what I play, and most of, at least for these videos too. But it all depends on what kind of music you grew up listening to and how you like your snare to sound. And so some of you will absolutely hate the tuning that we're gonna get to here, where I start tuning lower and lower, and we even go deader and deader. Some of you might think it sounds awful, but there's definitely a musical application for this. And I've used these super low snare sounds many times, whether it's recording or on a live gig. And so I think this is very practical, and you do need to be open to tuning your snare differently, even if it's outside of your comfort zone. But as far as reasons to do it, well, maybe you're playing a ballad. Maybe it's a slow kind of song that where a tight piccolo backbeat just isn't going to sound right. Sometimes you've got to tune it down, even muffle it down a little bit to get that right vibe for the song. So there are definitely applications for that, whether it's slow or it just needs a heavy, weighty kind of backbeat. Anytime you want the snare to have more weight and more punch, tuning it down is often the way to go. Interestingly though, you can also bring the volume of the snare down a little bit by tuning it down, especially if you're hitting it hard and you're playing rim shots. You can decrease the overall ringiness and loud piercing resonances from that rim shot by tuning it down. So that can come in handy playing in small rooms. And it also gives it a longer sound. If you tune lower, you can get a little bit of a longer note length. You can also loosen the snares more to extend the note length, and that sounds really cool. So I'm going to go through some examples here. I'm going to take off my lug locks here, and I'm just going to start tuning the snare down bit by bit. We're going to listen to it. I also have these jingles on here that are my muffling method. I'm going to take these off. I'm just going to let them hang back here. So we're going to be listening to it totally open. You'll hear some ringing, and some of that ringing could get a little bit nasty as we get lower. So that's why we're going to finish off with that trick for killing the ring. Here we go. I'll go and be honest with you right now, I don't like that ring. So let's listen to it with the jingles back on here. Basically what they do is just shorten the length of that ring. The head still vibrates, these bounce up, they land, and it kills it. So the tone is still there, it just shortens it. I do like decreasing that ring using these, but I'm going to throw them back off. We'll kind of listen to it with and without that as we go. By the way, this is for some guys like to flip the stick around to get even more weight, even more beef. I'm actually liking where it is now. I think we're kind of hitting a little bit of a sweet spot where some of that ring is decreasing, but it's got a nice low beefy tone. So I'm kind of a fan of this. Let's see what happens as we go lower. I think we've reached a place where this is a good low sound. Let's see if it still sounds good as we go lower. We'll see how much of a difference the jingles make. At this point, there's almost not much of a difference because the head is so loose that it's not ringing. There aren't overtones and resonances going on, so it's not much different with and without the jingles. I think this is a pretty cool sound. If we want super low and kind of getting into that dead territory, this is not bad. But lower we go because we can still go lower. So it sounds awful, like tapping around the edges. Like this just does not sound good. But in context, it could be kind of cool. That's cool, but we can still go lower. Okay, at this point, this lug is now loose. This lug's now loose. So at this point, we're getting into the loose lug territory where they're just starting to get loose, where it's like we're looser than finger tightened. I think where we just were was what I would call finger tight. We're now looser than that. So it's like nasty loose, nasty loose. So at this point, it's also totally dead because all the lugs are loose. So I think I liked it just before, where it was kind of finger tightened, and that way it had a little bit of tone, a little bit of fullness. At this point, it's just totally flappy, that it does have a sound. Like this is a unique sound, whether you think it's horrible or you think it's cool. But you can also get creative with this, and in the recording setting, you can do all sorts of crazy stuff in this in Logic or Pro Tools or whatever rig you might be using. And you can put distortion on it, a bunch of compression. You can EQ it in weird ways, and you can really do some interesting stuff with a low-tuned snare where it might sound terrible to the naked ear, and it might sound bad in the room you're playing in. You might not want to do this on a live gig. It could be cool, it could be bad, but in recording, you can really make this work in a lot of cool ways. Now, I mentioned deadening it without muffling it. Well, we've kind of got some foreshadowing here because the looser we've gone, the deader the drum's gotten. So you get the idea, the looser the lugs are, the more dead things are going to be. That's why if you tune higher, you get a lot more of the overtones and the ringiness. Let's say you don't want it this low. Let's say you want to keep it at a reasonable spot where it's low but not insanely low. But there is a little bit of that ring that you're wanting to kill. Let's say this is a spot that you want it. To the naked ear, it sounds pretty bad. I think it sounds okay through the mics, through my ears, and I can do some cool stuff with it in Logic to make this work. But let's say without taking the whole thing down super low, we want to just kill this ring. This is where we could just tune out this lug, like literally loosen this lug all the way. That might have worked. What if we loosen this one too? Ah, there we go. That sounds cool. I like that sound. So I loosened this one all the way, loosened this one slightly, and that got us to a sweet spot where without tuning the whole thing down, we've got a low, beefy sound that didn't lose all the tone.
I hope this video helped you out and provided you with something valuable to test out with your snare. If so, be sure to share the video and become a non-glamorous subscriber. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next video.